Hello everyone, we are from 7智勇. Today we will give you a tour on some of the most famous artifacts around the world, from Asia to Europe and all the way to Africa. And now, please let us welcome our first group, Daniel and Janet.
Hello everyone, I'm Daniel.
And I'm Janet.
Today, we will bring you to China and explore one of the greatest artifacts from the ancient Chinese.
Have you ever heard about the Terracotta Army?
If you haven't, can you think of anything related to this? As its name suggests, they are just a bunch of sculptures made of terracotta. However, they are actually life-size at about 2 meters tall.
The Terracotta is a collection of terracotta sculptures which depicts the Qing Emperor's armies. It is a form of funeral art buried with the emperor in 209 BC with the purpose of protecting him in his afterlife.
In different cultures, the afterlife might also look in many different ways. Some might be full of happiness and some might be full of dangers and challenges, just like the ones in the Chinese beliefs. In their beliefs, the afterlife is actually full of tortures and even demons. So we can know why an army is best for protecting the emperor's afterlife. And just like that.
Qin became the first emperor of China when he was very young, only at the age of 13. During his years of being the emperor, he also accomplished some great achievements, such as unifying China and building the basic structures of the Great Wall of China. The Terracotta Army was also considered as one of his great works.
He started this massive construction when he was just a thorn. This eventually involved about 700,000 conscripted workers. Even though the Terracotta Army holds a handful of sculptures, it still has different kinds of them. Estimate about 7,000 terracotta soldiers, 130 chariots, and about 520 horses, making it the largest group of life-size statues.
Other non-military figures were found in the adjoining pits, including officials, workers, acrobats, and musicians.
The terracotta warriors are mainly hand-cast and supplemented by molding techniques. These advanced processes give every figure very vivid faces and body features.
The Terracotta Army was found by the farmer called Yang Shifeng in March 29, 1974, while digging a well. He found the first warrior of the Terracotta Army.
Archaeologists then find out that the terracotta warriors are actually separated in individual pits. The first one accommodates the main army force for the purpose of protecting the mausoleum of the King Emperor. The second one contains mobile forces which acts like a military guard. The first one, which is the headquarters, and the last one is actually unfinished, which is also remained empty.
Another interesting fact is that there aren't any historical records about it.
And what's fun to know is that the terracotta warriors are actually also painted. However, due to some weathering and other factors, the statues we see nowadays are left in the color of clay. And there are still many questions left for archaeologists to investigate and find out. The terracotta warriors, expertly crafted with intricate body features, demonstrates an extraordinary high level of achievement from the artistic perspective. In conclusion, it provides a valuable reference for studying the military, political, cultural, and scientific, and even technological aspects of the Qing dynasty. Above is our presentation. Thank you, everyone.
What if no law existed? What do you think the society now would be like? Good night, everyone. My name is Melody.
I'm Devin.
I'm Eliana. Today, we're going to bring you to the birthplace of justice. Babylon was the largest city that was found more than 4,000 years ago. There's a lot of mighty kings, but one king left something that is very important to the society now, which is called the Code of Hammurabi.
Hammurabi was the sixth king of Babylon. He became king at a very young age of 18 because of his father's sickness. Even though he is very young, under his leadership, The kingdom of Babylon has been upgraded to an empire that has slowly become stronger, reached unprecedented stress, and a territory that has never been reached by the kings of Babylon.
He began to study the laws and the customs of the Babylonians, and he soon realized that there needed to be a consistent system of justice. People were being punished randomly, and no sense of fairness or equality existed. Therefore, in order to improve the social order, Hammurabi ordered his assistant to collect the laws of other cities in the past. In fact, there was already a law before the Code of Hammurabi, which is known as the Cost of Sumerians. Something unique is that although the Code of Hammurabi and the Cost of Sumerians were separated by hundreds of years, but their style and content are almost the same.
At the same time, in order to allow every commoner to see and understand, Hammurabi ordered people to find a huge pedestal and carve relief on the top. The content of the relief is that Hammurabi took over the scepter of the most respected sun god of the Babylonians, representing the right of kings.
On the first line of the text part, Hammurabi wrote a quotation in Akkadian, the language commonly used by the Babylonians at that time. It says, "Let the light of justice shine on the whole world, destroy all sinners and wicked, and prevent the strong from oppressing the weak."
There is total 282 laws in the Code of Hammurabi. For example, criminal law, trading law, and family law. According to the Code of Hammurabi, women can own their own property without being controlled by their husband, which was not available during other ancient code. You might have heard of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, but don't know what it means. Well, let me give you an example. If I broke your phone, under the principle of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, my punishment would be either buying you a new one or repair the old one for you. A society without law would most likely be marked by disorder, unequal, and lack of stability. The Code of Hammurabi and other ancient codes were created just to solve these problems and establish the justice. That's it for today.
Imagine that you are exploring on the Pacific Ocean as Jacob Woggiman, but suddenly you find an island on your front, and it's getting much closer and closer.
So what should we call that island?
Well, because it's the Easter day, so that's called it the Easter Island. Good evening, everyone. I'm Teddy.
And I'm Edward.
Today, we are going to introduce about the Moai statue. Just as we said, Jacob had started his voyage from Holland because of some commercial reason, and he came across the Easter Island. And when he first visited on the island, he had found out someone is praying to the statues. At first, the people on the island had a literal shape, and the people started to build the Moai statue because they want to commemorate their ancestors. And because of this, there's a group of carvers that will help them carve the Moai statue. And they will use a stone called toki to carve these statues because it is the hardest rock found on the island.
The Moai statue's appearance has many different symbols and meanings. The oversized head is used to remember their former leaders. Once the Moai statues were placed on the Ahu Island, there is a symbol of their former ancestors and their power. The eye hole will be carved after the statues were placed on the Ahu Island. The bigger the statues are, the more supernatural power called mana the ancestors has. For example, the biggest Moai statue on the island is called Pero. It is almost 10 meters high, and the ancestors must be very powerful. A red scoria stone will be placed on the head of Moai statue years later. It is used to represent the hair. And the residents believe that their ancestors will still look at the village after they die, and the Moai statue can give them fortune in the life.
And it is not exactly known how the Moai statue was moved on the island. The researchers assume that the people will use a rope and nail the Moai statue and make it walk while pulling forward. And the people will also sing a song when they do this, because it is very important to remember when to pull the rope.
Although the Moai statues are very heavy and big, but they still be damaged by a truck. The accident reminds us need to drive carefully, or you will cause serious damage. Most of the people assume that Moai statue has just a big head, but actually, a group of archaeologists dig out the body of Moai statues. It's thin and long and have many beautiful patterns on it. The Moai statue's emoji was created in 2015 by many companies. How interesting, isn't it?
In conclusion, we have learned that the people on the Easter Island will always remember their ancestors and even build Moai statues to commemorate them. And this is the end of our presentation. Thank you for listening.
Have you ever heard about the death mask?
How about Nefertiti, the symbol of beauty and feminine power?
Thousands of treasures hidden under Egypt, owned by the youngest pharaoh of the ancient empire.
Why are there so many artifacts from the 5,000 ancient pieces found in this tomb so likely to be prepared for a female?
And why are there piercings, which at that time is only for a woman, on King Tutankhamun's mask?
Now think for a moment. How could all these possibly relate to each other?
Hello everyone, I'm Hannah.
And I'm Sophie. Today we're going to talk about the death mask of Tutankhamun and details linked to it. The gold funerary mask of the 18th dynasty ancient Egyptian pharaoh, Tutankhamun, was excavated by Howard Carter in 1925 from area KV-206 in the Valley of Kings after being buried for 3,000 years.
Tutankhamun's tomb is much smaller than the other tomb. It only has 4 rooms and a passage. These 3 rooms are for the treasure, and the burial chamber is for keeping the coffin. If you open it, you'll see a beautiful mask inside, and that's the death mask.
It is 54 centimeters tall and weighs over 10 kilograms. In the ancient Egyptian civilization, gods were believed to have golden skin, silver bones, a long beard, and hair of lapis lazuli, which is a kind of deep blue semi-precious stone. Pharaohs are just the images of gods, so you'll see the same features on it. The back of the mask is covered with spell 151b in the Book of the Dead, which the Egyptians used as a roadmap up the afterlife. All these structures and decorations are either for protecting or guiding Tutankhamun after he died. Now again, why are there piercings on the mask?
To know the story, let's go back to the ancient Egypt. Nefertiti, the most beautiful woman in Egypt, became a female pharaoh after her husband had died. Then she lost the empire's power battle and offended too many people during her reign, so that people think her dead body had been thrown into the wilderness. Her son-in-law, Tutankhamun, became a new pharaoh at the age of 9. But back then, royals would marry someone from the same family as them to keep the pure royal lineage. And that's why Tutankhamun has so many genetic diseases and died young at the age of 18. Because Tutankhamun died so suddenly, tomb for him was not ready yet, so people decided to put his dead body in the tomb which was prepared for Nefertiti.
The mask was also for Nefertiti, but because of all the coincidences, the face of the mask was replaced from Nefertiti to Tutankhamun. Every mystery has its own story that leads to the final answer step by step, and today we deeply understand the hidden truth behind the spectacular artifact, the death mask of Tutankhamun. This is the end of our presentation. Thank you.
just as how modern people showcase their city's pride by monuments such as the Colosseum. People in the 15th century showcased their city's victory by putting a statue under the cathedral's rooftop. The Arte della Lana, a guild of wool merchants in Florence, Italy, commissioned a statue to be put on the rooftop of the Florence Cathedral. They initially hired another artist, Agostino, to create it for them, but he made little progress before it was taken over by the 26-year-old Michelangelo. Michelangelo worked on it for 2 years, and it was eventually unveiled in Florence. That masterpiece is David. Hello everyone, I'm Ryan.
I'm Doris.
Today we're going to talk about David. David is a marble statue of Renaissance sculpture that was made by Michelangelo between 1501 and 1504. What is Renaissance and who is Michelangelo, you might ask? Well, the word Renaissance stands for rebirth or revival. It's a period of profound cultural, intellectual, and artistic change. Famous paintings such as The Last Supper, Creation of Adam, and the Mona Lisa were made during this period. Michelangelo was a famous artist at that time, known for his accomplishments in architecture, painting, and sculpture. His works are renowned for their technical skill, emotional intensity, and artistic genius.
Another side, Michelangelo may be an archetype of brooding and difficult artist. He was indeed hot-tempered, withdrawn. However, his character was much more complex than the stunned artist stereotype. In fact, he has a great sense of pride and a reputation for being a bit tricky to work with. He was known for his perfectionism and meticulous attention to details. Despite his awful reputation, Michelangelo was also deeply passionate about his art. This was evident in his masterpiece. Furthermore, we can apparently discover his assiduous and long suffered by the David sculpture, which he spent 2 years to finish it. And although he has a quirky personality and a life full of mystery, Michelangelo was undoubtedly an incredible artist.
How is this David different from the other Davids? Well, the first thing is that it depicted David before his battle with the giant Goliath, while it showed David after his battle. This choice not only helps capture tension and anticipation of the imminent fight, but also highlights the emotional and physical strain David owned. The second thing is that he's naked. The reason for that is to emphasize the raw beauty of his form, and also show the beauty and perfection of the human body.
The David sculpture is the specific symbol of the Renaissance humanism. It came from the story David and Goliath, which is about human against a giant. Before the conflict started, David's expression was a bit serious and solemn. This is the power of people standing up for their rights, a confrontation with the unreasonable system, and a manifestation of humanism. So, what's humanism? Michelangelo said, faith in oneself is the best and safest course. Humanism emphasizes humanistic value and attaches importance to individuals. It expects that people could be satisfied without following a god or a religion. Finally, we hope that people can respect each other, uphold justice, and advocate freedom, just as what did Michelangelo do 450 years ago. If these goals were accomplished, then we can create a fairer, more inclusive society. That's the end of our presentation. Thank you for listening.
Battles, wars, endless band to conquer and endless battles to fight.
Today, we're going to talk about something that was made in a war zone, where you must obey or you'll die.
I'm Phoebe. About in 196 BC, a young prince became king at the age of 5, and 8 years later, the Greek Maybank was being copied and sent all over Egypt.
Millions of copies were made, but the most well-preserved one is being displayed in the British Museum, carved on the granite stone. And you might think it's a big stone, but it actually is a part of a bigger stone slab.
When it was inscripted, it wasn't a singular object. Rather, there were many of this type. A text praising the divine virtues of King Ptolemy was spread across Egypt through the erection of a similar state.
The French scholar and the stone was briefly only in French hands as a spoil of war. The stone was transferred to the British after the defeat of Napoleon and the signing of the Treaty of Alexandria in 1801.
It was found in a tax ration rosetted by a few French soldiers on July 15, 1799. It has been brought to the British Museum by King George III. It has been on display since 1802, and this artifact is called
the Rosetta Stone. It has 3 different scripts on it: Egyptian hieroglyphs, Demotics, and Ancient Greek. The reason is that the citizens used these 3 languages at that time, and now you might be curious why there's Greeks in Egypt.
That's because the kings were going to battles and wars to conquer land at that time. And the King Ptolemy, the person who made the decree, and the other kings who reigned before him, had conquered land that was once Greeks.
The decree is affirmed to the royal code, 13-year-old Ptolemy V, as his first anniversary of coronation. And now you might wondering why the Rosetta Stone is such a popular artifact.
Because the inscription said the same thing in 3 different scripts, and scholars could still read ancient Greek. The Rosetta Stone became a valuable key to deciphering Egyptian hieroglyphs.
200 years ago, French scholar and polymath John Francis Champlain had deciphered they found the Rosetta Stone. Their September 27, 1822 presentation is in the Académie des Inscriptions et Belles Lettres in Paris, where his audience included his main rival,
English polymath Thomas Young, who radically changed the study of ancient Egypt. For the first time in centuries, Egyptian hieroglyphs could be understood, leading a new wave of research into the lost language and the distant past it recorded.
The discovering of the Rosetta Stone is still rather an important task, and it's a difficult task too.
Some of the historic facts and stories of it still remain unknown.
That's all of our presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone. We are 7 智勇. Hope you enjoy our cultural journey around the world.